really being in peak state is about readiness. It's about being prepared and engaged, prepared and ready to engage in battle. And by show of hands, how many of you engage in battle every single day? Every single hand should go up, right? Because we are constantly fighting battles. We are fighting battles with friends sometimes. Sometimes we are fighting battles with loved ones, significant others, with our children. I say that who's the one person we fight battles with the most? Ourselves, right? We're constantly engaging in that battle inside of the quiet of our own soul. So being in peak state really means to be all in, which Ramon walked you through earlier today. So being in peak state has 3 different components to it, all right? The very first component of peak state is your physiology. And here's what we mean by physiology. You know, what does your body language say about you? The moment you walk into your office, the moment you walk into a room, what does your physiology say about you? And if you think about it, have you ever been sitting, you know, in your office or at your desk and you see somebody walk into the room, and before they even open their mouth, you know it was going to be a good day or a bad day? Just in the way that they carry themselves in their physiology, right? So being in peak state, your physiology should be strong. It should be powerful. It should say, here I am and I've got your back. It should say, I am ready and prepared to engage in the battles of the day, all right? So you just got to ask yourself, what does your physiology say about you when you show up in the morning, all right? Or at any time during the day. When we show up at home after a long, hard day at work, what does our physiology tell our children and our significant others who are at home waiting for us? You know, when we show up at work, what does our physiology tell those that we work beside every single day? When we are out in the community, what does our physiology tell those who you protect and serve, essentially? All right. The second component of being in peak state is your laser focus. And I say really it's the ability to get laser focused on the task that needs to be accomplished right when? Right now, right? Right now at this very moment, right? Not 2 years from now, not 2 minutes from now, not 2 weeks from now, you know, what's going on in the future. You know, we're constantly thinking about what's going to happen when? Later in the future, right? We're planning what's happening. We're thinking about the vacation. You know, our minds are constantly working. We talked earlier about that today. We can't get a good night's sleep because we can't turn our brains off, right? So it's very hard for us to get laser focus, but it's necessary if we are going to engage in battle, right? Focus on the task that needs to be accomplished right when? Now. Say it in peak state, right when? Now. Right now, at this very moment, all right? Now, the third attribute of being in peak state is all about your language. And what I mean by language is just simply the words that you choose. I call it the mental conversation you have with yourself. Is the mental conversation you have with yourself positive and powerful, or is it negative and cynical? Do you know people that work with you that walk around and their physiology tells you exactly what kind of language they got going on in their head? Right? I mean, the moment you see them, you know. If you got negative language going on in your head, guess what your physiology is going to look like? Right? I mean, we can tell just by the way people show up. So, you know, when I say language, this can be your mantras. This is your chants. Some of you pray in the morning, and that's the way that you get yourself ready for the day ahead, right? You know, I always think about football fields because it's a perfect depiction of being in peak state. You know, a football team is in the locker room. They're about to go on the football field and engage in what? Battle. They're about to do battle on that football field, right? But when they're in the locker room, what are they doing? They're getting themselves into what? They're getting the psych mode, right? They're getting themselves into peak state, right? And so what do we see? We see them, their physiology changes, right? They're moving, they're chanting, they're bouncing, they're all getting fired up, right? Physically, they are getting ready to engage in battle. They are focused on nothing other than winning the game and that battle that they are about to engage in. And what is their language? They typically have some kind of chant, right? Whatever their motto is that they're chanting in that locker room, getting themselves fired up, right? We have to do the exact same thing as mothers and fathers. You got to get yourselves in a peak state. Yeah, because you never know what the kids are going to come home with, right? I mean, you know, the work that you do you have to get yourself in a peak state? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all got to get ourselves. I'll tell you what. You think me and Ramon got to get ourselves in a peak state when we're up here? Absolutely. You know, I did a class just a couple of weeks ago, and it was an all law enforcement class. It was an all cops, all male class. So when I'm up there and I'm like, hey, laser, you know, energy, this, what do you think they were looking at me like? This girl about to go somewhere, right? I mean, they wanted no parts. They wanted no parts of that energy. Not only that, before class even started, many of them didn't even want to shake our hands. So do I have to be in peak state? because I have no clue what they're going to throw at me in the next 3 days, right? I mean, we just have no clue. So every single one of us have to have the ability to get ourselves into peak state. If we are unable or unwilling to get ourselves into peak state, we just might lose a battle. And who wants to do that, right? Nobody wants to lose a battle. And I'll also tell you this. When we lose those battles, we do not just lose those battles for ourselves. Who do we lose those battles for? Yeah, your team, your family. It's anybody who's counting on you to win that fight. So for many of you, it is your children, it is your team members, it's your community members. There are people out there that are counting on you to win those battles. So we don't get to not be in peak state. We got to have the ability to get ourselves into peak state. And how long does it take for us to get into peak state? What was that? So I heard I saw the coffee. I always get that, right? After I get a couple coffees, then I'll get into peak state, right? Or, after I get a good nap in or a good night's sleep, then I'll get into peak state. Well, here's what I will tell you. This is how quickly it takes for us to get into peak state. Just like that. It's a choice. We choose to be prepared and ready to engage in battle, or we choose not to. We choose to win those fights and fight with everything we've got, or we choose not to. Choice is whose? Choice is yours, right? Yeah, absolutely. Choice is yours.